What's up guys? Welcome to a new S/4HANA Cloud Knowledge snippet. In today's snippet we will once again be looking at advanced variant configuration, but we'll delve a little bit deeper and look at a couple of functions which are the concatenation of characteristic values and the update of the sales order item text. If we focus on the latter first, which is the update of the sales order item text, and look at the use case that we have before us, you'll quickly understand why we may want to do that. So let's assume that we have this sales order that is here in front of us, and the customer ordered 2 MacBook Pros in different configurations. Now the customer calls me back and says, hey, I've changed my mind. For the MacBook Pro that I chose with the 3.1 gigahertz processor, I want to change the hard disk from 256 to 512 gigabyte, which is fine. It's a change that we can accommodate for. But as I go into the sales order to amend it, I see that I have 2 items that have the same material number, configurable material, so generic by definition. The quantities aren't really going to help me either, and the description doesn't help me at all either. So at this point, I only have the only option for me is to actually go into each one of these items until I find the one that has the 3.1 gigahertz processor and changed its configuration from 256 to 512 gigabytes solid state disks. So you can quickly understand that it would be mighty helpful if this description was actually updated with characteristic values from the configuration that would help me identify which item it is that we are talking about. In addition, we also have to think about the customer-facing process, in that there is going to be a lot of added value for them to know and understand that item 20, for example, is the 3.1 gigahertz 512 gigabyte solid state disk. So there is the generic aspect disappears, and the customer can instantaneously also see, understand and identify which sales order items relates to which configuration. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking at. The other thing that we will be looking at today is concatenation. And to understand what I mean by that, let's go into the configuration of one of the items. So we're in the configuration screen of the one of the items, and already here you can see that we have a characteristic that has a value which is the result of a concatenation of a fixed text as well as the values from the processor characteristic and the storage. So if I was going to change the processor and go from 2.8 to 3.1, we should see that this value is, as you can see here, has also changed from 2.8 to 3.1. Similarly, if I was going to choose a different hard disk, so 256 to 512, the concatenated characteristic is also updated. So that means that we have a procedure that is essentially adding those values together into this one characteristic, and we'll look at that in just a moment. So let's go and look at the configuration profile and the procedure that we have set up to achieve this particular concatenation. So let's get out of the sales order. So let's go to the variant configuration modeling environment of our configurable product, PeriMB Pro, and let's look at the dependency that we have added to our product to be able to do this concatenation. So once again, I have created this dependency at the configuration profile level, and on top of the procedures that we had created last week, I have added this one here, which is I've called general configuration. So again, I double click on this dependency to go into it. I have here the indication of the dependency type, which in this case is a procedure. And if I go to the editor, we will be able to see the code that we have used to do the concatenation. And again, some explanatory text in English in case somebody else was going to be picking up this concatenation or this configuration work from me. I'll just go into change mode. Now, if you're used to coding in ABAP, you'd probably be familiar with the term concatenate. So in ABAP, you can say concatenate field X, Y, Z into A. But in variant configuration, in the dependencies, we don't have this reserved word concatenate. But instead, the concatenation is represented by this double pipe character. So in this particular case here, what we are doing is we are saying that the characteristic short description, which is this one here, short description, which is the one that we saw when we were looking at the configuration screen of the sales order, we're essentially saying that the short description is equal to, in between hyphens, so MB Pro, which is going to be a fixed text, concatenated to PRMB Pro processor, which is the processor, so whatever the value of the processor that is chosen is, concatenate to a minus sign, concatenate to the storage, which is going to be the hard disk space. And then we can also, if we're going to add another concatenation, we could say, for example, we wanted to, I don't know, let's say we want to add the term, for example, M2018. So I'm just going to add another piece of fixed text, which is M2018, as in the model, the 2018 model, as an example. Again, we do a quick check to make sure that the code, the dependency code that we have indicated is correct. So let's go ahead and save that. So we don't need to retest this now because we kind of know it already works, seeing as we saw that in the intro of the sales order. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to add the ability to update the sales order item text with this particular concatenated code. And again, for that, we'll be using a reference characteristic. And I have already created this characteristic, which I've called Mac description. Now, from a creation point of view, it's pretty much as you would create any other characteristic, except that again here we have to be able to, in the additional data, reference a SAP table and field. And in this case, we have indicated that for this particular characteristic, the reference table is VCSD update and the field is ARKTX, which corresponds to the sales order item text, which is from the table VBAP, so sales order item level information. And similar to what we had when we did the pricing, so in pricing we had the reference table SDCOM, which was the pricing communication structure. In this case, we are using this other communication structure called VCSD update. So we will be updating variant configuration, sales and distribution, update table field ARKTX with the value that we pass into it. And if I then look at the dependency, because we have created a dependency, so what I need to do is add it to my configuration profile, is I'm just going to right click on my configuration profile, say assign dependency, without engineering change, and I'm just going to add the dependency that I have already created. And if I double click on that dependency, what we will see here is that this is also a dependency of type procedure and the editor. And from a dependency point of view, we are pretty much doing the same thing here, which is to say that self Mac description, which is the reference characteristic that we have created that updates the table VCSD update, is going to take on the value from the short description, which is the concatenated characteristic that we have created just before. So now that we've assigned this procedure to the configuration profile, let's save that and let's see how all of this is going to hang together. Okay, the configuration model has been changed. Let's get out of that. And let's go and create a sales order once again. Now we should notice two things. Is number one, the concatenation should be slightly changed because I've added the term M2018 at the end of the concatenated sentence. And we should also see the sales order item text that is going to get updated with that very same concatenated text. So PREMB Pro 1, and again we'll go into the configuration screen, and we're going to change some of the defaulted values. So let's go for a 3.1 gigahertz processor, and you can see that the concatenated characteristic is now updated with that last set of characters M2018, which I added, and also the processor 31G. Let's also change the hard disk to 512 gigabyte solid state disk. So this is getting updated, and this same characteristic, which is the one that is going to update the sales order item text, is updated with that very same value. Now you might also be wondering, well, why would we have two characteristics that update have the same value? Well, they have different uses. Number one, you could also use this one here, for example, if you had a variant table. So rather than passing to the variant table 1, 2, 3, 4 characteristics, you could actually concatenate them and put them all into one field. But anyway, this particular configuration is now complete, and I'm just going to say done. And when we return into the sales order, we should see the sales order item text being updated. So there you go. So the generic title or description of the material has been replaced with the concatenated sequence of characters that I determined during the configuration. And right now, if my customer was going to call me up and say, hey, I want to change the configuration for the 3.1G processor to a different disk space, it would be a lot easier for me to see and understand which item it is that he's talking about. So there you go, how you can, number one, concatenate different field values into another characteristic, and also how you can then update the item description of your sales order item with that concatenated value, or it could have been something completely different as well. So I hope this was instructive. If you like this particular video, then like it, share it, comment it, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Thank you.